Yeah, so this is really neat. So this is a cocktail that I did for Chef Francis Ang's restaurant Abaca that's opening up in August. So it's again trying to hold true to the Filipino flavors and the Filipino restaurant and ingredients. So I wanted to do a daiquiri. Rum is quite popular with the Philippines, along with surprisingly gin. But I decided to do rum, obviously, because this is sponsored by Appleton and Wray Nephew. And surprise, surprise, I actually split the base and put it in this drink. Not purposely, just by coincidence, it happened that way.
Wow, there you
so
go.
again, I was like, "This is fate. This is fate." That
It really was. It really was.
Appleton, yeah. So again, I'm splitting the base with this. So just 1 ounce of the Appleton. It used to be the Special Reserve, now it's the Family Reserve. And then we've got the Wray Nephew, 1 ounce of the Wray Nephew that I infused with Pandan, and then milk washed it. So kind of a cool technique that Dave Arnold has kind of perfected, and we all like to use. I'm not taking credit for this by no means. Dave Arnold is a brilliant genius, and he wrote an awesome book that we all use as a resource. So milk washing that Pandan, so it's essentially taking the Pandan leaf, sous-videing it for about 30 minutes. I always like to treat Pandan as like a tea leaf. So the longer you steep it, the more bitter elements you get out of there. So I try not to steep it for too long. So a little bit of honey syrup, or we make our honey syrup 2 to 1. And if you know anything about Calamansi, the thing that I learned is Calamansi needs fatness, like really, really fatty things to kind of balance out that chalky and that super bracing acid. So I have the 2 to 1 honey in there, about 3/4 of grapefruit, ½ ounce of fresh Calamansi juice that I freshly pressed this morning. Kidding, I didn't. I did not do that. And then about 1/4 ounce of maraschino. So kind of holding true to what a daiquiri was. Again, like we talked about, how did I get to this point? Was it literally just replacing the lime juice with the calamansi, but adding a little bit of honey syrup to rich it out. And then that milk washed Pandan Wray Nephew, which gives a great little milk texture, which is again putting texture into this cocktail and fattiness that calamansi needs. So I'm just gonna ice this down and give it a shake.
Yeah, buddy.
Smile. All right.
This is probably one of the few where anybody's made a drink in an actual bar. We've seen an incredible amount of seated at your kitchen counter cocktail making.
Oh no, we're lucky today. I mean, again, it's like I said, we didn't have PCH to do it, but we still we have Konas here.
There you go.
So just shaking.
Look at that.
Straining it out there, and then I garnish it.
Oh, look at that glassware. Like that.
Oh yeah. If you know, I like our glassware. So this is one of my
that's beautiful.
Buying new glassware for PCH. We're trying to reopen hopefully soon. But this is awesome. A nice sexy one from Japan. But garnished with a grapefruit twist, citrusy.
Man.
I don't expect anyone else to have one. But there it is. Milk washed, Pandan-infused Wray Nephew. I like to split the base on that just because obviously 2 ounces of Wray Nephew in a daiquiri might get you some in trouble. And I definitely don't want to be responsible for that trouble.
Correct. Makes sense. Makes sense. Awesome, man. I'll throw it back up here for you.
Yeah, cool. So delicious. Like you get that texture, you get that nice bright acid brightness from the calamansi. And then you've got the kind of that split base, the Wray Nephew and the Appleton in there, giving it the backbone to that cocktail.
Right on. Let's walk through. Oh, here you go. Here's your recipe. So a little more detail.
Yeah, so pretty easy. I mean, you could almost plug and play this to anything. Mr. Potato Head it with another spirit. This recipe that we do for the Pandan infusion is the same recipe that we use for a cocktail we have at Kona's called the Boracay Old Fashioned with his Pandan-infused gin. So if you're looking to make a Pandan spirit or infusion, you can literally do this with this or replace it with another ingredient of same profile of Pandan. Again, I can't reiterate enough that I use Pandan more like a tea and a tea leaf than like a botanical, like basil or anything of that sort, just because of the profile of it. But again, it's just one really long Pandan leaf. I brought some of it here.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't know Pandan, it's like this super long
Where do you get yours?
So we're lucky here in San Francisco to have a huge influx of Filipino food and cuisine. So I buy this from a produce company that comes fresh. You can get it fresh. I actually saw it really randomly in Houston, of all places, at H Mart, fresh pandan. But you can buy it frozen as well. Just thaw it out. I honestly prefer fresh, just because frozen can get off a little bit of a kind of a dirty garbage flavor, which is really weird. I try not to say that in a bad way, but that's just the flavor profile I get off. Of like
Dirty garbage, but in an alright way.
Dirty garbage, but in a good way. But like fresh pandan gives off that really like nutty marzipan, buttery popcorn, which is what you're trying to get from the pandan. A little bit of vanilla too. So I just use one really long leaf.
Describe it. That's a good way to describe it. I've never really kind of nailed on how to do it, but I think that buttery popcorn idea. Totally.
It's like it's weird trying to explain it to people, because people like we use it a lot over here, but trying to explain it to people are like, what is that? And you're like, buttery popcorn, and they're like, yeah, that's what it is. Like nutty marzipan, buttery popcorn. Don't use the term what I just said, which is like dirty garbage.
Don't use that. That's not a good sales technique.
Do you smell the dirty garbage? No, it's not. It's not the bar. It's the cocktail.
But it really, I mean, I find this as well. Again, I'll kind of reference my world, but it's connecting context for people that makes sense to them, right? That's how you help people understand flavors that may be somewhat familiar but different. I think once you put in a bit of context, it's just so much easier to kind of take them along for the ride.
Yeah, and it's like I mean, again, we're kind of fortunate, and we have a heavy clientele that is Asian and Pacific Asian and Filipino. So a lot of the flavors are very recognizable to them, which is awesome and brilliant. And it's such a great experience to share something, because it brings them back to their childhood. And I think that's what we have to do, and what we do in the bar industry is we create experiences and we cultivate